Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. East Palestine, Ohio sits directly on the border of Pennsylvania. It's just feet away. So anything significant that happens there in East Palestine, say a toxic mushroom cloud rising thousands of feet over the town,
so uncivilized,
is certain to affect the state next door. And that's why 3 days after a train derailed there, spilling a great volume of dangerous chemicals onto the ground and into the water, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, held a press conference about it. Shapiro announced that authorities had decided to set those chemicals on fire. And that was a very good thing. No one should be unduly alarmed. The burning of these chemicals, Shapiro said, had gone, quote, as planned. Officials on the scene, meanwhile, declared the burn, quote, perfect. Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio, agreed with all of this. The people in charge, the railroad's engineers, and the state officials overseeing them had everything under control. So 2 days later, evacuation orders for residents were officially lifted, both in East Palestine and over the border in Pennsylvania. That was last week. In the subsequent days, a lot of people have wondered out loud, was it really a wise decision to light thousands of gallons of vinyl chloride on fire, releasing a World War I-era bioweapon into the air over a populated area? Was that a good call?
Oh, no.
And was it really safe 2 days later for people to go back to their homes? And if it was safe, how do we know that? Is anyone in charge actually monitoring with any accuracy the level of deadly chemicals in the air, ground, and water in and around East Palestine?
Oh, my God.
Well, no. Apparently nobody is. And that's highly upsetting when you think about it. Talk about a failure at all levels. The first duty of government is to protect its citizens. So it's bad. And it's very bad news for reckless politicians like Josh Shapiro and Mike DeWine, who may have helped make this disaster much worse. So tonight, both DeWine and Shapiro are desperately trying to revise their previous statements about the so-called controlled burn. Both have now decided that the toxic mushroom cloud over East Palestine, the one they signed off on and endorsed on television, was actually a bad thing. It didn't go as planned. It wasn't perfect. And both governors have now identified the villain here, not as themselves, no, of course not, but as the railroad, Norfolk Southern. Both are considering lawsuits against the company. In an act of amazingly brazen butt covering, Josh Shapiro even wrote a letter to the White House and the Transportation Department. What? Claiming that Norfolk Southern was, quote, unwilling to explore or articulate alternative courses of action to their proposed vent and burn. It was very obvious, he says, that there was probably a, quote, safer overall approach for first responders, residents, and the environment. That was very obvious. He just never said anything about it. It's remarkable. And for the record, we are not defending Norfolk Southern here. We're only pointing out that Norfolk Southern had the strong endorsement of Josh Shapiro and Mike DeWine.
This is not true. This is not true at all.
When it set those chemicals on fire and caused the mushroom cloud. And by the way, the Biden administration endorsed it too. According to Pete Buttigieg, Biden officials were on the scene. Yet somehow they never said a word about the mushroom cloud until pictures of it evoked outrage on social media. And of course they didn't. They didn't even notice. It had nothing to do with equity or climate change. East Palestine is a poor white town that voted for Trump. So honestly, who cares? No one in the Biden administration did care.
Whoa!
And that's an atrocity. The people whose indifference made it possible should lose their jobs, beginning with Pete Buttigieg and extending to Governors Josh Shapiro and Mike DeWine. They didn't care, and they got caught not caring. Even tonight, Mike DeWine clearly still doesn't care. Here he is insisting everything's fine.
So if it were your family, Governor, you'd be okay sending everybody back home?
Yeah, look, I mean, we indicated that. We're going to continue to test the air. We're going to continue to test the water.
Oh, snap.
But what that is indicating is that it is very, very safe.
Yes, we indicated that. Kind of a clinical response and a dishonest one because, of course, Mike DeWine is not living in East Palestine, and there's no chance of that ever. Animals in East Palestine are dying by the thousands, and you don't need to be a chemist to know that's not a good thing. The town has been poisoned.
Residents worry about what's still in the air, soil, and water of their rural community.
Oh, that was gross!
gross!
Don't tell me it's safe. Something's going on if the fish are floating in the creek.
Ohio officials confirming some 3,500 fish died in local waters in the days after the derailment. But insist extensive testing shows there's no threat to other wildlife or humans. They say there's only anecdotal evidence of residents getting sick and no confirmed connection to the hazardous chemicals aboard the train.
Oh, there's only anecdotal evidence, also called observed reality.
Oh my God, that was so funny!
Maybe Tony Fauci will show up soon to lecture us about the science. Amanda Bashirs will probably not listen. She lives there, 10 miles from East Palestine in Lima, Ohio. She says that even at that distance, burning chemicals smell like chlorine and hurt her eyes. And she also says her chickens, and this is not a good sign no matter what they say, are dying without explanation.
So I walked up to the cage, and this is what I found.
Amanda Bashirs was going to feed her 5 hens and rooster this morning. Wow. When she discovered them all lifeless, practically in the same position, with no signs of a predator entering their enclosure.
I'm beyond upset and quite panicked.
You see where I'm coming from?
Because they may be just chickens, but they're family.
Brashear says her chickens were alive and well yesterday. She believes the smell following the detonation of the train carrying chemicals that derailed in East Palestine is to blame for her birds' sudden death.
Wow.
My video camera footage shows my chickens were perfectly fine before they started this burn. And as soon as they started the burn, my chickens slowed down and they died. If it can do this to chickens in one night, imagine what it's going to do to us in 20 years.
So as always, if you want to know what people really think, ignore what they say. Words are cheap and people lie. Watch what they do. Mike DeWine may say it's safe to be in East Palestine, but you'll notice he's not spending the night there. One woman who does live there noticed that federal officials, while assuring everybody everything was fine, were wearing hazmat suits.
When you watch people that are investigating, they all have these giant hazmat suits on. But somehow it's safe for people to go back to these homes.
Huh?
They only evacuated a mile out-ish. Anybody outside of that, you're kind of on your own. If you want to leave, you can leave. If you want to drink bottled water, go for it, buy it. If you want to, but it's all on our own dime. And this is caused by, a company who makes billions of dollars and we're forgotten about.
So the people who live there obviously want some answers. It's totally safe, says the guy in the hazmat suit. So residents of East Palestine Center gathered for a town hall. The mayor has just told residents that he has not heard from anyone in the White House, didn't until yesterday when it started to become a political liability for them. The mayor also said he has no idea where Pete Buttigieg.
Oh my God.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. We almost never use the term deep state on this show. There's something about it that sounds paranoid, even a little nutty. As just a few years ago, you mostly heard the phrase from relics on the far left, the kind of people who lecture you about the United Fruit Company and the toppling of Mossadegh.
I like turtles.
The term, then and now, suggests that our democracy is fake. Elections and domestic politics are just a sideshow. No matter who you vote for in the end, the same people still run everything. Whoa. That's a pretty dark understanding of the American system. If you're a normal person who grew up here, it is the last thing you want to believe about your own country. It seems crazy. And then you read stories like this one. According to reporting this summer, in the days after last November's election, Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, held a meeting with senior military officials at the Pentagon. Milley wanted to inform them of what he described as a serious threat to national security, a threat so grave that it imperiled, quote, the stability of the republic. That threat, Milley said, was the sitting president of the United States. Donald Trump had dared to question the election results. For this, Milley explained, the U.S. military might be required to use physical force against the president. We're the guys with guns, Milley said. Apparently, he'd been preparing for this moment. Milley had similar conversations with the director of the CIA, Gina Haspel, as well as with the head of the NSA, Paul Nakasone. He'd also spoken directly to Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, Donald Trump's chief political rivals.
I heard that. I wish I didn't hear that, but I just heard that.
Now, according to a new book by Bob Woodward and Bob Costa, Milley apparently went even further than that. On October 30th of last year, Woodward and Costa report, Milley called his counterpart in China, that's a general called Li Zhocheng. Milley did not tell his boss, the president, about this call, either before he made it or after. Here was Milley's message for the Chinese military. Quote, General Li, I want to assure you that the American government is stable and everything is going to be okay. We are not going to attack or conduct any kinetic operations against you.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
And then reportedly, Milley said this, quote, General Li, you and I have known each other for 5 years. If we're going to attack, I'm going to call you ahead of time. It's not going to be a surprise. Let that sink in. Quote, if we're going to attack, I'm going to call you ahead of time. It's not going to be a surprise. So according to this account, our country's top defense official secretly colluded with our chief military rival to undercut the elected president of the United States.
Thanks.
How would you describe that? Deep state is not strong enough. That's treason. It is a crime. And apparently Mark Milley is not the only person who was implicated in this crime. Others knew it was happening as it did.
Hello there.
Our intelligence agencies almost certainly heard Mark Milley's call. If they can read emails from a cable news show on Fox, what are the chances they were aware that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was speaking to a senior Chinese general and what they were saying? Well, the chances are about 100%. And yet the NSA did nothing about it. The CIA, meanwhile, was clearly fully on board with this. We are on the way to a right-wing coup, said Gina Haspel. She told Milley that. And in fact, there was a coup in progress, but it did not come from the right. It wasn't brewing in Alabama. Instead, a constellation of unelected government employees, loyal above all to the Democratic Party and to the permanent class in Washington, ignored the United States Constitution. And then they invalidated the votes of tens of millions of American citizens. How'd they do that? Because they invalidated democracy. Democracy doesn't mean anything if the people you elect have no power. And Mark Milley did his best to make certain the elected president had no power. In early January, Woodward and Costa report, Milley called another meeting of senior officials at the National Military Command Center. He informed this group that they reported to him, not to the elected president of the United States. And that's not a small claim. The National Military Command Center controls, among other things,
Are you so excited?
the nuclear weapons inside our missile silos, as well as the nuclear weapons on board our submarines. So Mark Milley was seizing personal control of America's nuclear arsenal. He went around the room and demanded that his officers submit to his authority, not the president's. Milley told them to follow no orders without first consulting him. According to Woodward and Costa, all present in the room agreed to this. So civilian control of the military was over. Mark Milley was in charge.
Whoa, 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 hey, 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 hey.
If this is true, it is one of the scariest things that has ever happened in this country. You often hear people say they're worried about authoritarianism coming to America. Well, it's here. That's what this is. It's authoritarian government. It's government by unelected, unaccountable leaders who are willing to use violence to preserve their power. That's what this book describes. It's shocking. Not surprisingly, our news media have spent the day celebrating it. It turns out the self-described defenders of democracy don't really believe in the system they claim to revere. The idea of giving voters power over their own government repulses people like this. So they're relieved to discover that, in fact, our democracy is fake. Here's a selection from some of today's programming.
I would call General Milley a hero. He behaved in a heroic manner.
But what he did was ensure the guardrails were in place. So I give him high marks for this based on what's described in the book.
I think Milley felt ill-used by the episode on Lafayette Square when he was used as a prop. So one can understand Milley's anxieties.
We were in a period of extraordinary danger. I think General Milley is going to be treated very favorably by history.
So you heard four people speak. The first guy you saw in that clip is Rick Stengel, and he's a moron, obviously, so there's no surprise there. The second guy was some retired military official. But the last two, George Will, Barry McCaffrey,
Lies and smears and slander.
these are people who, whatever you think of them or who they vote for, you would have imagined might defend American democracy when it came right down to it. But no, they didn't. They cheered its ending. They're happy to see Mark Milley secretly conspiring with the Chinese military to end civilian control of our Pentagon. So it turns out that's the government they want. And you should not forget that. So now that we know all this, what happens next? Doug Macgregor is in some ways at the center of this story. He's a retired Army colonel who last year advised the Trump administration on foreign policy. In that capacity, he co-authored a memo calling for American troops to leave Afghanistan finally after 20 years. According to Woodward and Costa's account, that memo, Macgregor's memo, is one of the reasons that Mark Milley decided to organize a coup.
Observers from across the political spectrum agree that President Biden's alarming debate performance last night showed all too clearly that he does not seem to be up for serving 4 more years in office.
No, you are so dumb. You are really dumb, for real.
And the American people are going to demand answers about whether the White House chose to hide his decline from the public. Why did they do it? Last night, CNN's senior political commentator Scott Jennings flat out accused the Democrats of lying.
The candidacy has fallen, okay? Van, I know you're speaking from your heart. I'm worried about the president. We should pray for the president. I think his advisors, I think the White House, and I think his family have a lot of explaining to do to their party and to the American people. This night, this one night, was caused by and asked for by the Biden team. They wanted this night. And this is what we got. We have been told for weeks by Democrats who say, oh, in private meetings, I've seen Joe Biden do cartwheels and handstands while doing trigonometry while solving all the nation's problems.
I lied.
We now know that every single person who said that has been lying to the American people. Everything we've been told about his mental acuity by these Democrats has been a lie, and everything we think we knew has been confirmed.
Kennedy, we were told there was a new term called cheap fakes for edited video. We were told not to believe our eyes. This was a cover-up of epic proportions. I don't think I'm overstating that. When you put together everything that's been said, not just in the last few weeks, over the last 3.5 years.
Yes, and voters have known that, and they've seen that, and some have been very worried, and some are just told they're plain stupid, or that they have been the victims of right-wing propaganda. This was not a cheap fake. This was, unfortunately, 90 minutes of brutal pain, and someone has been incredibly dishonest this whole time. Remember when Ronnie Jackson was peppered with questions about President Trump's health, his mental health, his psychological well-being, and whether or not he's fit for office? Why hasn't there been some sort of a public medical exploration and psychological of President Biden? We deserve that as voters. And you can only hide these kinds of problems for so long. And just in a few months since the State of the Union,
Spicy meat. Yeah, boy.
his decline has been precipitous. So if that's what happened 5 months ago, what is the president going to be like 5 months from now?
Yeah, let's revisit what we were told. Here's memory lane. Let's play it.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. You know, I can't even keep up with it.
I would put the president's stamina, president's wisdom, ability to get this done on behalf of the American people against anyone on any day of the week.
I'll tell you the reality of it is, and I spent a lot of time with President Biden, be it in the Oval Office, in the Situation Room, and other places. He is extraordinarily smart. He has the ability to see around the corner.
He can do it, and I see Joe every day. I see him out
traveling around this country, I see his vigor, I see his energy, I see his passion.